Hey, what's going on everyone? So Beatrix, the original global first meta breaker, has finally come to stay with her lost chapter. After not getting her gear the first time, getting her EX for free the second time, and getting her LD now, I have finally purpled her. So if you're interested in what she does, what she offers to a team, and what I think of her, stick around and find out. Beatrix is a magic support who thrives in a buff-rich party, offering offensive and defensive auras and buffs of her own, healing, and battery. She has decent offensive potential and also has good skill longevity thanks to her EX regenning one use of her skill 2, and she's able to negate party damage with a unique buff. With her LD, she gains extra utility as a strong dispeller. Her skill 1 is Saint Cloth, which first batteries the party before a 3-hit HP attack. Onto the party, this applies buffs for defense and HP regen. Based on the number of total buffs in the party, she gets enhanced basic attacks. 6 or more buffs gives plus versions, which add 1 hit to both attacks and party battery either based on her attack or the HP damage. 9 or more buffs gives 2 plus versions, which adds 1 more hit, stolen overflow to the HP 2 plus, and gained bravery overflow for the party in the brave 2 plus. Her skill 2 is Thunder Slash, 3 group thunder hits with 20% splash HP damage. With at least 9 party buffs, this is enhanced to a plus form, which has 6 hits, higher overflow, and higher splash damage. Onto the party, either form applies Noble Loyalty, which raises attack, max bravery, and reduces brave damage taken. Her EX is Clim Hazard, a 4-hit group attack with split HP damage. With at least 9 party buffs, this is enhanced to Clim Hazard Plus, which doubles the hits and adds overflow. Any form of Clim Hazard gives Beatrix Sworn General, which raises her attack and max bravery. The EX Plus is a lot to read, but that's because it boosts every single aspect of Beatrix. Her skill rotation, her basic attacks, and of course the EX. Realization already does a lot, improving Sworn General and regenning 1 use of Thunder Slash every EX cast, so while not truly a free cast, it is definitely a move you'll want to use between EXs. On top of that, it unlocks Clim Hazard 2 plus and 3 plus versions of her basic attacks with 12 or more party buffs. Clim Hazard 2 plus becomes double cast with Brave Return after the first HP attack, while her 3 plus basic attacks gain yet another hit compared to their 2 plus versions. 1 ingot is a stat boost, at pretty standard values for any unit who does damage. 2 ingots is starting buffs, more helpful for Sworn General since it's reasonable to use Saint Cloth once before her first EX cast. 3 ingots gives every form of Clim Hazard more potency and overflow, which is pretty great especially for the 2 plus form. After using any form of Clim Hazard, it changes her HP attack to Holy Knight Safeguard for 1 use, which is basically her HP 3 plus, but it gives her a 1-turn buff of the same name, which negates all party HP damage taken while it's active. It cannot be extended, and her HP attack reverts back to what it should be after use. Her LD is Shock, which first dispels all targets and then does 8 group hits with split HP damage that ignore enemy defense. The party is batteried based on the HP damage dealt and are also given an HP regen buff, and all targets are given the Rose Petals debuff. It lowers attack and has a sap effect for Beatrix, and when attacked by Beatrix, she executes a follow-up attack which dispels 1 buff from the target, self-batteries her, then does a 3-hit HP attack that ignores defense, with the party batteried based on the HP damage dealt. She doesn't have to attack them with an HP attack to trigger the follow-up if you're trying to conserve Holy Knight Safeguard, and the LD passive raises her attack and max bravery. Beatrix in Global has definitely had a history. Her initial global release was far ahead of schedule than when she should have arrived, so to say she had power is an understatement. Defensive buffs were a bit more effective at that level of content, and healing and battery was not quite as common as it is today. Her true character event gave her EX Plus and made Beatrix more properly scaled to content, and now with her lost chapter, we have her as updated as she is right now, since she hasn't had a rerun yet. People were hyped at the idea of Global getting a character before Japan, a pretty powerful character at that. With that in mind though, I feel like Beatrix's kit is indicative of a different era of the game. Nowadays, there aren't too many defensive units who aren't also tanks, and back then, personal buffs or wide-reaching buffers weren't common yet. For example, when Global got Saz's 35 CP early, his buff count and team effectiveness was incredibly powerful for the time, but again, we got it early. Beatrix needs a healthy buff count to perform best, similar to Hope. The issue is, 2/3 of her party buffs aren't framed, and one of them is the HP regen buff, a necessary consideration if you're running her as your only healer. I also don't think defense buffs are really that great anymore in this game. Point 1, this game's mission conditions aren't really made for guarding and staying defensive. Turn limits, a score requirement, and an inability to block kinda downplay generic defense buffs in my opinion. Point 2, generally, if you want defense, you're going to bring a tank anyways, and tanks don't really need to bolster their defenses via a teammate's defense buff, as high potency as Beatrix's is. What isn't the highest potency are Beatrix's offenses. At its core, this isn't a problem because Beatrix leans more support and almost all her skills are capable of at least decent damage, but it's weird looking at her EX that does nothing but damage and seeing those low brave numbers. That criticism aside, it's not like Beatrix has no good points. Her battery is solid, the LD and the follow-up ignore defense, which gets past one of the issues of Lufenia, and getting another use of Thunder Slash after each EX is great, especially against a group. Her Holy Knight Safeguard is incredibly powerful, as with good timing, you'll be able to have it ready whenever enemies turn scary. Beatrix isn't bad, I just feel the core part of her kit, those things she initially was designed and launched with, don't mesh well with this game as it is now. She provided defense and buffing in a time when there wasn't a lot of that, and with buffing becoming a core part of every unit, and defense buffing somewhat rendered moot by strong dedicated tanks, what she provides otherwise don't completely balance out the loss in my opinion. She still definitely has room for improvement though, as she hasn't been given an LD extension yet in Japan. Do I think she'll get another rework? Sadly, I don't think so. Consolidating her buff count seems unlikely since her EX Plus auto-applies them, and her kit revolves around a large buff count anyways. What they could do in that regard is have her LD extension give a unique effect that functions like Hope's, except instead of raising just her offenses, raise the party's, as Beatrix's offensive auras are kinda average. Alternatively, or even better, additionally, boost the effectiveness of Rose Petals. Have it apply either at the start of each wave or at the start of the cast so she can follow up after her first LD cast of that wave, and include some sort of damage up effect. This would give Beatrix a better offensive presence in the party, making her slot more effective for a high powered damage dealer at all points in the fight. So yeah, that's a purple Beatrix. On first release, she and RNA after her left very strong impressions on the global meta, probably so strong that we're not allowed global first units anymore, among other reasons. Here, 2 years after her initial release, she's been given her full potential as far as our foresight is concerned. The issue is that in my eyes, the state of the game has changed a lot compared to where her potential was pointing when she first came around. She still has room to improve, but it's not going to be nearly as big as that of other units, at least not that I can guess. If you like this breakdown of Beatrix and want to see others like it, other Opera Omnia content, or want to share your thoughts, be sure to stick around and subscribe. Discussion, likes, and shares are always appreciated, and as always, thanks for watching and I hope to see you again.